Is there anyone who would like to us something to discuss other than progress?
Nan, can I have just a moment to talk about the audio visual? So we think we have Zoom working, but in this meeting room, the big monitors are off, but we have a little tablet that says that things are working. So we can't visually confirm it. And so it's just the monitors in the room that are working, that are not working, but apparently people can log in at home. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for doing this. You're forgetting the AV system started, Bob. Okay.
So Bob, just to be clear, people can join the Zoom or not?
Yes, Nan was able to log in with her computer.
So, okay.
So that says that others should be able to do it as well. We just cannot see.
Oh, on our monitor. Okay. So if we have a speaker via Zoom, we'll be able to see him and the town will be able to see.
We think so.
Okay.
Yeah, poor Pat is trying to use recordings of the meeting to help finish the minutes, and sometimes we don't have recordings, sometimes we just have audio, sometimes we just have video. It's not working too well now. So we were. It's so far. Okay. Maybe I should just say if it's still that the town is aware of the fencing, aware that the fence has been taken down and is being put up when the permit has been completed. To check the definition side. And I think that the point would only be that all roof text, mostly it's residents that they consider from, and looking at their feedback to what we see something or something, and so they go to action. So we have that. Okay, thank you, Mary. And anything one could do to convince the council to allow budget for the Zoom system would be very helpful. Where that is going to, it's approval for donation. And once it's approved for donation, that we will, the budget will happen. But it's process. Okay. Okay. Moving along through the process of establishing that. Okay. Progress moves slowly. Thank you. Consider it amazing that we actually have a video. We didn't do any recording. Yeah. Are you signed in on your laptop? Are you signed in on your laptop? No. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's we seem to have video, and I hope we have audio also. Okay.
Any other item other than what's on the agenda? Okay, old business, I have one item, and that is, this is A, minor changes to the work plan we approved last meeting. Turn to page 3, the page with the blue rectangles. The only changes I made are in, bold italics, so take a look. Carefully. And Pat Gary Simon for the first one, public communications.
So the revisions are in bold, is that what you said?
Revisions are in bold, yes, and the revisions I took from comments from the January meeting. Where are you? No, that's how they spell it. No, that's how the USGS spells it. Really, honestly, yeah, honestly, I know.
Oh, he's missing a U.
It's a moral failing, isn't it?
These things are GAGEs, they're not GAUGEs. So, okay, on number 1, just adding, resilience, infrastructure, emergency response, rebuilding to the items that we could put or should be commenting on, writing on. And I didn't specifically say build a new web page or work with the town to build a new web page, but I think that's implied. And Simon suggested that he'd like to the format of the Wildfire Preparedness Committee's webpage. So I think that's probably a good place to start. And then if we find that it's not appropriate for us, we can get later.
Question? Is rebuilding really part of that project? I mean, it sounds like it's sort of outside our purview of competence.
Well, that's a really good question.
I don't know. I'm prepared to accept it because we want to have rebuilding, but
What do you think? Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure that we're the right. Because our knowledge is geologic.
Who is going to address that?
Hmm?
Who is going to address rebuilding after earthquake?
Yeah, well, it looks like in Pacific Palisades, nobody except the homeowners are. They're going to do the way it was before.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if your house is red tagged or yellow tagged, what are you going to do?
I don't know. Well, I'm happy to leave it in, and I was just wondering whether it was really something we have any special knowledge.
Seems like it would fall under, the planning commission or something to have guidelines on rebuilding.
Ideally, an important group of architects and engineers and
Right.
like that.
Yeah. We could leave it or take it out. Your choice. Your subcommittee.
I mean, what would we even say about rebuilding? Except don't, don't build in a fault zone, don't build on a landslide. I mean, build in a flood zone.
Yeah.
It just seems like that's outside our,
Well, it's probably the planning and building department's review,
yeah.
but what happens in the interim when you have partial damage? And what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, but what advice are we going to give as homeowners?
We should be ready to provide advice from the committee that decides on how the rebuilding would take place. That committee is going to want to know what about the geologic substrate and the various hazards related to the geology. And it seems to me we're secondary. We're provide information to the and geologic guidance for those who are planning the next version of Portola Valley. Holy mackerel, sounds terrible, doesn't it? Next, well, anyway, let's hope it never comes to that.
I guess I think of rebuilding as, well, okay, maybe rebuilding is not the right word. I'm concerned about resilience in the sense that if we have an earthquake,
Mhm.
the town may be so badly damaged that people are just going to want to move out. And it will be a very, very long time before the town as we know it is reestablished. So I think a lot of the decisions about whether to stay or go will depend on infrastructure in the town and the, whether you can actually live in your house, even if it's partially damaged. So I guess that's what I'm thinking about rebuilding, but the rebuilding may not be the right.
So what would the safety committee's role be in that?
What would be,
Safety committee's role be in,
to start the conversation about what do we do?
Yeah.
Ask the questions, what do we do about maintaining population in the town?
as a geologic safety committee?
I'd like to answer at least my opinion on your good question, which, okay, so seems like we're talking about when there's going to be an earthquake and rebuilding after that. I think whatever rebuilding is done needs to be done with an awareness of the geologic hazards. And I think that we need to be part of the process. I agree with Gary that we're not the right committee to be in charge of the rebuilding, but I think that we should not be left out and ignored. We need to be at least willing to be part of the process. That's my, thank you.
Sure. No, certainly we should be involved in it, as would the people that worry about wildfires.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if it.
But, I just was wondering, and I think you clarified it for me. I don't care, you can keep it in, this way as you want. At least it provides us with the possibility of justification for a place at the table when the decisions are made. So in that sense, it probably is. We know what these people will do when they rebuild it, if they don't pay any attention to the geology. They'll screw up. And the same way with wildfires. We've got to do better. Can't have these houses all next to one another.
But what would we want people to do that isn't covered by existing ordinances and state law, Alquist Priolo? What additional recommendations could one imagine coming from the Geologic Safety Committee?
For geologic, seismic hazards, probably not too much more because they already have reinforcing requirements both for the foundations, that sort of thing. And if wildfires go on really bad, because wildfire, if you put all the homes around common circles and they're only 10 feet apart, good defensible space is 100 feet, according to Caltrans, Cal Fire. Caltrans too, probably. So
Going forward, I see a need to revise our regulations. A good example is dealing with minor surface rupture. I mean, if you look at the regulations, if there's a fault, we're supposed to be so many feet if we know where it is and so many feet if we don't. And that's clearly very applicable to something important like the San Andreas Fault, obviously. But what about when you have minor movement? That's clearly a fault, but do we actually want or need people to stay 50 feet away? I don't pretend that I have the answer to the question that I'm raising, but I do anticipate that this is going to be a topic that we will be addressing in the future someday.
So there's actually a concern that current regulations may be too rigid or too restrictive
Yes,
based on what we're likely to observe
that's right.
following a 1906 event, and that this could lead some homeowners either to be prevented by the town from rebuilding in their current locations, or be subject to huge costs in trenching and geotech studies before being allowed to rebuild.
Right.
And that might limit the town's ability to recover.
Yes,
And the challenge then is that the town would be enforcing essentially state law, not town codes, because the town codes, I think, are no more, I suspect, I don't have no idea, are no more restrictive than state law.
yes. In fact, it's sort of backwards. We had the first restrictions and then the state caught up with us. And nobody's ever tried to revise it since. I remember having conversations with a geologist that's not part of this room, remain anonymous, but they were talking about after Loma Prieta, there were fault lines of things happening in like Gatos or Los Altos, and they're not on the maps, but you could see that the surface rupture went from one property to another, and it was very close to structures. Well, that implies that forevermore there's going to be a problem. And the way that it was resolved was it's not considered a major fault. And so therefore we're going to ignore it. Well, that's one way to handle the problem, obviously, but is that really the wise way to handle it? And I suspect that we're going to have to address that, not now in this meeting, but we will address it someday in the future.
So Tim Dawson, when he gave that presentation in 2023, so as a reminder, works for the California Geological Survey. He said in his presentation, if you listen carefully, that either Los Gatos or Cupertino or both of them already consider the foothill thrust belt to be active in their planning documents. They're not waiting for the state to designate it with Alquist Priolo. So the implication was that the town wanted to do that. I don't know how you would implement it, but it's not. There's precedent for that.
Well, we have our geologic map and it has places that are faults that are not in the Alquist Priolo zone, and yet they're on the map. So yeah, we are allowed to do things.
Yeah, we put faults on the map, we take them off. The Monte Vista fault, when we first moved here, this was 88, the geologic map of the town had the Monte Vista fault running across Alpine Road at Alpine Hills Club and up basically Hillview and stopping somewhere up the hill. Oh, no, I'm sorry, continuing down through my yard toward Mary's house. And the Monte Vista was considered to be, a secondary fault, but they had it basically connecting with the San Andreas toward Woodside.
Another issue, sorry.
Some years later, the neighbor, just across the drainage wanted to build a guest house right where where the fault line was mapped. They trenched at great expense, did not find the fault, and built the guest house. Okay. Subsequent. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, so they built the guest house over the fault line. Okay, okay. They trenched, did not find the fault. built a, they trenched. Okay, we had neighbors wanted to build a guest house, an ADU, where the fault line was mapped through their property, the same one that goes through mine. And they trenched at great expense, did not find the fault. And so the ADU, which is a structure for human occupancy, was permitted to be built in that place. Subsequently, Cotton Shires took all the fault off the map except the part that runs across up to Hillview. They stopped it at sort of the top of Hillview, and the part that ran through all the rest of Portola Valley toward Woodside is not on the map anymore, which means that I could build right there, not knowing whether there's a fault or not. Monte Vista. It runs along Arrestradero Road. And then it cuts across Alpine Road at Alpine Hills Swim and Tennis Club.
So the point you're making is based on one trench, the town removed the whole fault trace.
Yes. As far as I know, there may have been other studies, but I'm pretty sure that was contributing.
Well, we have a new map that provides more fault data than previous maps. But in fact, this committee is not really equipped to define probabilities for all the faults. That is one of the many missions of the U.S. Geological Survey. So it seems to me what we should say is that the probability of nearby faults, for that, we have to follow the USGS. We may put in some more faults that the survey hasn't done, but then their obligation is to assess whether that's a real problem or not. But it seems to me the important thing is the USGS has much more capability of addressing the probability of any and all faults in our purview than we do. So we shouldn't be the one who's saying what the probability is, the survey.
Except that the town undertook having the town map originally.
Yeah.
And kept that up for quite a few years. And then there haven't been too many changes except to take faults off the map. And then when Bob and Chet Rocky published their study on the exact location of the fault crossing at Alpine Road and San Andreas and Alpine Road, the town map was changed to reflect that. But other than that, there's not been too much.
We started this conversation by just looking at our work plan and including the word rebuilding. There's a topic that I would like to deal with in the future. I just want to raise it. I'm really kind of mystified how we clearly are spending a lot of time, and justifiably so, focusing on making sure that nobody builds on a fault or too close to it. But something that's lost is not only is there like right lateral movement of where there's surface rupture, but there's also just ground deformation.
Yeah.
There's vertical offset, there's warping. I think that's a whole topic that I don't want to spend in more than what I'm going to say here and not get too distracted from it. But it's a whole topic that I think the public is pretty much unaware of. It's also poorly understood. But yeah, people build homes and beautiful homes and places, and it may be that after the big earthquake, it won't be level because of the ground deformation. Then they're going to have to figure out, how do you re-level your house? Do you tear it down and build a new one? Someday we're going to have to focus on that. Not today, not in this meeting, but that's an example where when it comes time to rebuilding, I think we need to be part of the process. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, back to the work plan here. although the topic that we've been discussing is a lot more interesting. Are there any changes to number 1? Anyone would like to change anything? Take off rebuilding, leave it in light of our discussion.
Only that, so it reads like it's focused on earthquake preparedness, but we do want to include flood preparedness, you know, all the other aspects of geologic safety, just to make sure. I mean, this infrastructure, emergency response building would encompass more than earthquake preparedness, but just want to be clear that.
Okay, yeah, I think earthquake was in there in the first draft, and I meant to change it to geologic hazard from earthquake.
Okay.
Would that be?
Yeah,
would that
that
work?
would be
Okay.
better.
Begin a series of communications on geologic hazard preparedness, resilience, infrastructure, whatever.
Well, then maybe rebuilding should be changed to long-term response. would be a
Long-term
response
response,
as opposed to,
rebuilding.
yes, or planning for energy.
Emergency response and long-term response.
Yes,
Okay.
and that takes us away from the building code that none of us want to be involved in, but captures the sense that, well, earthquake probability will drop dramatically after a 1906 event.
We're done.
So we have geologic hazard instead of earthquake and long-term response instead of rebuilding. Okay. Mhm. Does that work for everyone? Okay.
Sure.
Steve doesn't have a microphone.
I'll
Oh.
grab one.
Okay. Okay, number 2, contact Cotton Shires for estimate. The cost estimate for updating the town's geologic and government potential maps, including digitization. I moved that from what had the number 6, because it went with the part on working with town and staff in Cotton Shires. Mary, I'm of 2 minds. One is I just send an email to John Wallace asking for an estimate for updating the maps. And the other is it really should come from the town staff, not me. So Darcy?
Yeah,
Okay.
and ask her that question, because she in fact may want to have you go ahead and write it, because, you know, because what she's been doing a lot of is putting the committees to work. And if there's somebody here who's competent and ready to do it, then she's gonna want it. So, I feel good about that, but I would put it by her, put it to her
Okay,
directly.
okay. I'll make him.
And it could, you know, be as simple as a telephone call.
Thank you. Good suggestion. And then,
If I could briefly speak to that, I was in the Woodside Town Hall this morning, and I'm currently sharing an image of a couple of boxes of geotechnical
oh
reports
my,
that gives a sense of what the issue is that it's shared on Zoom, Mary. I just don't know if you can see it or not. And it's simply a couple of boxes of,
Right.
and I had simply asked to see the geotech reports for my street. A number of the bundles say scanned on a certain date. I'm not clear that they're actually online. A number of bundles are not scanned. There's Debbie Harden's original undergraduate report. And, you know, so that just gives you a sense of the magnitude of what could be done, but recognition that it's digitalizing older parts of the economy, if you will, is a very problematic issue. Particularly when it involves large format sheets as well as bound documents. And in a, it's a project that I could imagine an Eagle Scout wanting to take on the task of putting documents online to improve the safety of the town in the future. But it's, you know, there's just a lot of manual labor that would be involved, right? And, it's desirable, but it's not clear that it's fundable.
Yeah, we'll address that a little bit later. Thank you. It may be the case. It very well be the case.
So a question about
Yes.
saying ideally georeference them on a GIS parcel map. Is there a way instead of GIS, which a lot of people won't have any facility using, to use something like Google Earth? People can bring up, you know, the
Yeah, there's-
sort of satellite imagery and have dots where reports are available that they can click on.
Woodside's ahead of us.
Well, Woodside simply provides availability by street address. And so the county maintains a map that lets you find parcel number of each address, and parcel number and street address appear to be the ways that these things are locatable, but in these storage boxes.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Bob and I attended, or met with Sarah Course, there it is, Course, CAWRSE, who is the new planning and building director. This last week we met, and we discussed this. And we said we'd like everything digitized and online and available for everyone, for, you know, all reports back to day one for all lots. And her thought was that it would be a big step forward if we could, you know, if there are reports in boxes, as Simon showed for Woodside, and we think there are here, just to label the files with the parcel number and address, and make the information available online that there is a file, and then the files could be accessed by parcel number or address, the physical files, instead of trying to make everything digital.
Which I think is where Woodside is actually at right now, is that there is a flat file listing documents by address, but one then has to go to the town to request to see them.
Okay.
So to add to what you said about this meeting, it was very good. We have a new planning, what's her title? Planning director, planning manager. Yeah, so she's used to working for many years in Denver, where they apparently have a great GIS system. I think the city of Denver has more resources than our little town. So clearly there are examples out there of communities like cities like Denver that have done a great job, and it would be great to get there, but I think that we're going to get there by taking baby steps. And we have to focus on what's going to be our next baby step, because it's quite a lot of work to jump from nothing to a really world-class system.
Good point. I think the first baby step will probably be locating all the files. Second will be labeling them and documenting them, that they exist. And it's, Simon says a flat file, or ideally you'd be able to click on a map and come up with a list of documents that, for reports that have been done on that particular parcel. But that's in the future. But I don't think everything is going to be scanned and online ever, probably.
Maybe at the risk of getting the ire of everyone else on this committee, I said things to Sarah, the building manager, that based on communications that our committee has had in the past, we had volunteered to do some of this work. And I spoke about how we were willing to do this, not with any one of us in mind. But she heard us, but she also, I think they're so at the early stages of the project that in terms of like who's going to actually do the work and what work are they going to do, we're not that far along yet. So that'll happen later.
So maybe the ask to Cotton Shires is, and I think we're not asking to make any updates to the map at present, but we're asking to understand what and where the costs are should we wish to make requests in the future. I think that's what we're trying to find out, so that we feel more able or less able to suggest updates. Is it an annual, is it a decadal process, for example? And then to get a sense of, do they have a catalogue of what of their full holdings, and should this be shared with the town and made public? Right.
Yeah,
And if not, what would it take to make such a catalogue, them contracted by the town or volunteers, town employees coming into their office to go through those boxes?
well, it might not be. I think Steve, I'll get you in a second, if I may. I think probably the most hazardous, if you will, for building situation is one in which Cotton Shires has the reports of, of an unbuildable section, part of a lot, and the town doesn't know. The town's going by the maps, and towns has the town probably has its own list, but it may not match Cotton Shires. So I think, yeah, Steve.
I may be remembering incorrectly, but I think when the gentleman from Cotton Shires presented to us, he said that they had their reports digitized and we were welcome to them at any time. I don't know if any of us has followed up with them regarding that.
Did
but,
you say reports or maps?
both?
Both.
Yeah.
Oh, that they are digitized.
I mean, we could look back at the video archive, but that's how I recall.
That's absolutely right. That's my
Oh.
memory too.
Oh, I'm sorry, my recollection was contrary to that, that they have these boxes and many or most are not digitized.
Yeah. Well, we should follow up with them.
So, okay, so we'll ask them, other reports and maps digitized.
What I remember him saying is they have students in the summer that it's not complete.
Okay.
That they have students come in during the summer that do the digitizing,
Oh,
but
for-
that process is not complete. That's
For
what I,
intern. Oh, the
heard.
interns, okay. 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 I'll try to reword this to make this work. I said, make all the reports easily accessible to the public. That's the, ideally georeference them on GIS, parse them out. That's aspirational.
yeah.
And we'd like to keep in contact with Woodside on this, what they're doing.
Right, and just as a practical matter, this somewhat resembles the problems we have at Stanford with library access, that we are moving very many items off-site, and we have to factor in the cost of access on campus versus delivery of documents to campus. And so in the same way, there's a large cost to digitize and make everything available, or there is a small per request cost to access things from Cotton Shires. And so that's sort of the trade-off that has to be made in a practical matter.
Okay, and then there's the question of whether the town has the same physical files that Cotton Shires has. We don't even know that that's the case. It needs to be coordination.
So Nan, when you, the part that's in bold, contact Cotton Shires for a cost estimate for updating the geologic and ground movement potential maps, what does that essentially mean? So we would come to them and say, we've looked through all the data relevant to these two maps, and we think the map should be revised in this manner? I'm not sure what we're asking Cotton Shires to do.
But the maps are revised periodically, and I'm not sure who initiates the process. But Cotton Shires accumulates enough changes so that someone says, hey, we better show the changes on the map so that
So we want a cost estimate for their labor for updating the map.
yes, from their information. Yes.
Once we've gotten to a point where it seems the bulk of data that's pertinent, that's not in the maps, requires a update.
I think it's probably a matter of a dozen or 15 or 20 or something changes that need to be made to the maps. Either when Casey wants to move
So our part would be to make them aware of where we think changes need to be made. Is that what we're doing?
No, he has changes that will be put before the planning commission. And then the planning commission recommends changes to the town council.
Okay, so Cotton Shires already knows what changes they update the.
Yes.
But we want them to give the town an cost estimate, or give it
Yes.
to us that we give to the town, or.
We need to get,
I think that somewhere in the knowledge or memory or whatever in the town offices is knowledge of how this process has happened in the past. What are the details of the contract with Cotton Shires? And the same with what documents are held by the town, storage boxes, and what documents, additional or identical, are held by Cotton Shires. And it could be that the first stage is actually to ask in the town office has the best oral history of how this works.
problem here, yes, it would be, you would absolutely be right, except that there's been a loss of institutional knowledge in the last couple of years. And there's a great deal that has not been passed on with the change of staff.
Right, so I think that's sort of a question for the building and planning perhaps director is, what does she want to do about this? Does she think it's useful to start looking at their oral histories in the town? Or does she think it's actually more useful to go to Cotton Shires and ask them, how have we done this in the past? What is your recollection, right? And what is your understanding of the process and contract? And so I think that it's probably more appropriate to make it start by making an action item for Sarah Course or the Darcy. Is to say, how would you like, we think this is worth tackling. How would you like this to be tackled? Do you want a motion from us to make, to help it happen? Or can we just dump it in your lap and say, get back to us at some point? And I'm looking at Mary because I hope she will have good advice here.
Again, I think the same advice goes for this, and I applaud your idea that we got to look forward and enough is enough about worrying about where the institutional knowledge is. Sitting down with Sarah and Darcy, with the chairman and the vice chair for half an hour would answer these questions, and you'd be much more likely to get a working relationship.
So Sarah, and who was the other person?
Darcy.
The chair, the planner and the manager, Darcy Smith and Sarah Course, are our two men in Washington, so that he can speak. And they're terrific. They're both talented, hardworking, and open. I don't guarantee anything is forever.
A part of the question that was being raised here has sort of indirectly been answered. We know that Cotton Shires has a lot of information. The town has no idea what it is.
Okay, so Mary may be right that where we should start is meeting with Sarah and Darcy and just working out exactly how things should proceed. Yeah, okay, thank you, guys. I'm tying them out. Okay, let's see, the next change, I'm just going down the line, is to number 4. Okay, I'm going to take out contact Cotton Shires, and I'm going to say meet with the town staff to discuss. Yeah. To discuss procedure. Okay. Number 4, do you want to add? Okay, number 4 is actually Simon's and Bob's. Simon is, you'll get a chance to talk in a second, but Simon has undertaken a magnetic gravity seismic survey of, pardon?
You're talking very quiet.
No one can hear. You can't hear me because I'm not speaking. Thank you, okay.
You're very soft. Very lady.
All right, I will yell into the microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Not comfortable. Okay, there, I can hear my voice echoing.
That's good.
Okay, so Simon has, of course, undertaken a survey, seismic magnetic gravity survey on the Hawthorns and over to Sweet Springs Trail at Portola Valley Ranch in conjunction with Stanford, in conjunction with the USGS. Okay, so he may have, there may be some changes to the map resulting from your survey. I don't know yet.
We don't know, but preliminary indications are that it's too complex to make a simple recommendation. There's no we're not yet sure what the data mean.
So is that the drone data, or you followed up with some field-based
Right,
data?
it's all of it together,
Okay,
that we're still looking at things, trying to get better estimates of physical properties of serpentinites and greenstones to understand the significance of the magnetic anomalies we see. But there's a suspicion that that many of the contacts and boundaries may represent much older faults that are not a meaningful hazard rather than very young faults. That I think is a wide open debate. There are clearly boundaries that are identifiable, but the significance of those boundaries is not certain.
So Simon, would you say that if the town is ready to revise the maps based on Cotton Shire's current list of changes it would like to make to the maps, we should go ahead, or should we wait until you have more definitive data?
If the town is ready, they should go ahead. They shouldn't wait on any ground-shaking discoveries from us.
so Simon, you have now gravity data, magnetic data, and then some sort of shallow seismic?
Right. The only meaningful aerial coverage, AER, EAL, is from the aerial drone coverage, IAL. And that's showing a lot of complexity and a long strike changes. So we don't have sufficient coverage at this stage to demonstrate a long strike continuity that would connect to existing faults in a manner suggesting they are modern and potentially.
You know, I've mentioned this before, and I'm not an expert in this area at all, but some time ago when there was talk in this committee about changing faults on maps, I went and talked to my USGS colleague Russ Gramer, sort of the expert on kind of mid-peninsula faults at this point, evidently, and Russ was interested, and he really emphasized this quaternary fault and fold database. And he pulled that right up and showed me how it works and how the existence of faults is backed up by data that you click through to. And apparently there's some kind of peer-reviewed process for getting something into the quaternary fault and fold database. And I may be somewhat misrepresenting what he said at some time ago, but I got the impression he thought that we as sort of a government-linked body, we ought to do that burden of proof and peer review when we wanted to change, if we wanted to change maps. Now,
Well, our maps are for land use, planning and building in town here, and don't necessarily have to match, sort of unfortunately don't have to match USGS maps.
well, this is a collaborative project of the California Department of Geology and USGS. I think maybe California takes more of a lead role at this point. I don't know. But, you know, it's something that you can propose to change, you know, if we think there's really a fault here that they don't show and so on, you can go through that process and make your case. But yeah, you probably know more.
Well, then Tim Dawson is the California Geologic geological survey person that works on faults in this region, along with Russ Green. So, I mean, we can look into how if we pull together evidence and data from all these geotechnical and geoengineering reports, and then what Simon's working on with the students, we can pull them in and show them the data and then ask for guidance on getting into the USGS fold and fault map. I mean, the threshold is that it's peer reviewed, which is a good thing, right? It's not just someone thinks, you know, this is right. They've got some feedback.
So I'd like to add a few thoughts. I applaud the idea that we should do things in a peer reviewed way. I mean, there are things where I have my own opinion. I feel that my opinion really doesn't matter much at all until it goes through a peer review process. I very, very much want to know the opinions of Mars things. So I do think that there's a need to produce reports that can be good enough to be peer reviewed, and whether they go all the way to being folded into the quaternary faults, that would be great. But yeah, we need to have a process like that, some kind of a peer review. So I see the process of updating the town map. One of the takeaways I'm getting from this meeting is that updating the town map is probably not going to happen quickly. We are struggling trying to just get the basic data of like property geotechnical reports. Process of peer reviewing papers takes time. I see that we can get it done. It's just not going to be quick.
I'm thinking of a more collaborative process. Let's say Simon's field investigations identify sites to come in with trenching or something, then we would pull the state in or the USGS and say, this is a potential site to get age, control and rupture history characterization, rather than us write a report and give it to them and say, here, put this in your map.
Well, I'm going from the perspective that if we have knowledge that they don't, we add to that knowledge by publishing, and then hopefully that will, yeah, be part of the process. And
I think of it more as if we told Tim Dawson, here's a good place to put a trench to get age control on the faults coming off the foothill thrust belt, that he would find interested. That's a sense I got from the presentation he gave.
I think there's this discussion highlights the differences between the town map and the USGS/CDMG maps. And one simple question is, should the town map expect to show all the faults that the USGS and CDMG show in this area? Is that something that we think is a good idea? And if not, why not? I'm thinking out loud because I'm new to this business and new to the societal implications of putting faults on some maps as opposed to others. But the reasoning behind my study at the Hawthorns was the USGS does have a fault there on their map, and the town does not. And I'd have to go back and look at the legend for the town map, but I assume it distinguishes between Alquist-Priolo faults and non-Alquist-Priolo faults. And presumably, Cotton Shires made a decision somehow not to include a fault. I don't know whether it was a proactive decision, a decision of commission or of omission, not to include faults that are in the quaternary fold and fault database.
I wonder if it'd be if we're really thinking about changing faults on maps, I wonder if it'd be useful to have kind of a briefing from Russ Kramer and the gentleman from CDMG, and maybe have the Cotton Shires rep here again and say, okay, how do we decide that the burden of proof, the burden of peer review has been met to.
Right, so, or at least to, at a minimum, to understand from John Wallace of Cotton Shires what his decision process or recommendation process is in terms of whether to simply adopt the quaternary fault and faults.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I think, I mean, we can't be peer reviewers of ourselves. The committee cannot internally provide the peer review. It has to be out in the broader community. So.
Well, thank you for the question both of you raised, but I get the impression that it's kind of a question of age of the data that comes along. In one sense, it's implied that the town map is more accurate than the USGS map in the sense that homeowners have geotechnical work done. That data gets collected, it gets reviewed by at least Cotton Shires, and they make a finding based on what has been found because the ground has been dug up. That data does not easily get to the USGS. They're not aware of all of these little details. So it's implied that our map is better than theirs, but then the process of deciding when does a fault get put on a map and taken away from a map not really been well defined. And we have many examples of faults that were on the map and now they're gone. So it's a very, it's a rather loose, not well-defined process. And it would be, I think, better if we had a more rigorous process.
I suspect a large part of it is scale dependence, that Nan's anecdotal report about her neighbor trenching and finding no fault only tells me that, and the trench presumably was no more than 20 or at most 50 meters long. And the width of the line in these maps, or the width implied to a geologist, is surely much greater than that when one's crossing regions of no outcrop. And so Nan's neighbor demonstrated that there was no active fault exactly where she wished to build, but that does not demonstrate that the fault does not exist. And most likely, in this case, I would surmise the fault exists, but has not been active within the Alquist Priolo time period. It belongs on any geologic map, but only because the map is intended to be a representation of reality, and it is not intended in that case to represent an actionable item for building and planning.
So
There is a way you can have it both ways. The two maps are different. One map has certain things that they think are there, so they're a solid line or at least wide line or something. But there is, we could put the faults from the other map on that map as short dashed lines with question marks on, and contrary-wise. It would make it much more complicated, both maps, because each one would show its own view, which is an interpretation with more solid lines, but a few light dashed lines for the opposing map's idea. That way, at least you let everybody know there's some question about certain map portion. And it really is that way. And when you do make a map, there are a lot of things that you can only dash in. So either way, it would be so complicated. I'm afraid the problem is the townspeople, if they're ever gonna see it, are gonna be perplexed by it, no end. What about the map that's only shown in a dashed line near my property and so forth? Because they're all gonna be concerned about what faults are near their property and what's their nature. We don't know, but we can imagine that the probability is less for a dashed fault than for a solid line. That's about as far as we could go.
So in terms of policy, would a dash line require a homeowner to do a geotechnical report? That's where it starts to bog down. But just as a reminder, the trench that was done here before the town center was built did not find the San Andreas Fault. The trench that was done at Family Farm did not find the San Andreas Fault. So,
Well,
it's,
that's,
yeah.
I'd like to address that because the whole issue, we've had points brought up in this meeting about the age of faults and things. There are places in the town that were documented in the Lawson report. So we're talking about the 1906 earthquake. And so, yes, I understand that with faults that are not in the Lawson report, it's more difficult, but we do have two examples of, and I'd really love to get some knowledge from this committee, other people. I'm so glad that I can be part of this. Yes, there was a paper written by Taylor, was the lead author in 1980, where there was a trench dug not too far from my left in the town center looking for the San Andreas Fault. They did not find it. They concluded that it was what I call the eastern trace that goes in front of this schoolhouse in the parking lot, and that was the 1906 trace because they couldn't find it over there. But then there was additional trenching where they did find it. And when people did find it, they recognized that they have to look for radial surface rupture that's associated with like radial shears as opposed to a simple single mold track type strike slip. Then there's also a place in the field between the Neelys and the Sequoias where the company Pacific Geotechnical Engineering, PGE, dug a trench all the way across the field, and it would have gone across the Black Mountain Fault, and they did not find it. And so if we go on the yardstick that I've heard it said many times, that trenching is kind of the gold standard for looking to figure out what's what. When you do something expensive as trenching is, and you're told that it's the gold standard, it's not unreasonable to assume that you're going to get gold-plated results. But there are two examples. The Taylor report, they couldn't find it, but the others did. Then PG&E digs PGE, not PG Andy, I'm sorry. They dig a trench and they don't find something, yet the Lawson report is extremely clear that it's there. So now what do you do?
Yeah, it's just that the absence of evidence doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That's the point.
Here's another example, and maybe Pat's question.
May I interrupt this? I'm going to have to leave because I have a doctor's appointment.
Oh,
But
okay.
I want to point out that the logo, which is a very nice artistic view, has some fatal geologic flaw in it. The layered strata beneath the sort of earth brown alluvium where the earthquakes seemingly are, that the upthrown block is progressively less altered, less displaced if you go all the way down to the amber unit near the bottom. Those will go right across. That's impossible. It has to be the other way around.
Normal fault, this kind of slip fault.
Well, yeah. Well.
Harry, I spent a lot of.
They wait out, well, at least there's strike slip. I mean, well, there are upthrown and downthrown portions which are horizontally offset, and they appear to show vertical movement.
I think it shows
There is
inversion.
vertical
It's a thrust fault inverted as a normal fault since before the very last layer was deposited. Has shown growth on it.
Thank you, Simon. You
Well-
settled that one. I spent a long, okay, I just used Chat GPT for a
Oh.
short time. Try to generate this. And this is, after the fourth iteration, this is what I got, and,
Very impressed.
but I cannot for the life of me figure out how this, I mean, Simon has answered the question. It could be a, thrust fault, reactivated
Oh,
as
mhm.
a normal fault, because I couldn't figure out how the upthrust side had more layers.
It is a
They-
puzzle,
yeah.
it is a puzzle, whereas the lower layers,
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
that's right on through.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was very creative of it.
It is, it's beautiful, and you know, at first glance, who the hell cares about what the logo says? And nobody will see that except another geologist and say, wait a moment. Does this throw the whole thing off anyway? Anyway, it's too bad.
Yeah.
Well,
I
okay.
liked it, but
Well, as long as Gary's here, we're jumping ahead to new business, but,
Dare
What's
I,
something-
dare I opine?
pardon.
I'm sure I shouldn't opine on this, but it seems like you've got 3 great corrections for your chat GPT. Why don't you just ask it to fix it? And it will.
So the nickname for AI is almost intelligent.
Almost.
Intelligent.
And I would have no idea how to start doing this. So I would totally
No, I couldn't do it either. But with something like this, if we,
I think, yes, I do.
if we
I-
can get the geology right, would something like this work for a logo? Just in general.
Absolutely, though the close to actual size does suggest that we might be reaching the point of diminishing return.
Yes, yes. So, okay. Question is whether we're on the right track. Okay, so Gary,
no, I can't.
so Gary, yeah, you have to have another appointment, so you have to leave.
I'm sorry. I
But
really do.
thank you for coming. Okay, so.
I'm sorry for spitting in the soup for a couple of.
Okay.
Just talk to a structural geologist, right? And
Well,
Yeah. Okay, so we are, oh, wait a minute. Just boring. Number 4, do we want to put investigate the stream gauge data or just, is that too much detail for the work plan? Something we really want to do.
Well,
And strengthen evidence for the 1906 intersection of San Andreas Fault and Alpine, but that's Bob that we work on that.
so this is a work plan for the year 2026. I'd like the fact that the work plan does not have due dates. But I would have to say that things like the floodplains and the stream gauge is probably beyond the scope of what I can do as far as my involvement this year. I can get other things done, but probably not. That one was probably too far. I'm willing to leave it in there as long as there's not an expectation that it get done this year.
I know my way around those databases pretty well. I can do that one. It
Okay.
it really half a day or so.
So
So,
maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that there were questions about adding physical stream gauges in the town and that kind of work.
well, probably first we want to know what's been collected over the last century or so. So that's what I was thinking of.
Okay, and Bob, your part, strengthen the evidence for the 1906 intersection. You
Yeah.
said you have something to add to the paper you and your dad wrote.
Oh. Well, what I'd like to talk about right now is something to maybe of interest to the other.
No,
Oh,
you're next. This is not this item. No. Wait,
okay, I'll wait
You're
for
under,
you.
you're under, you're under.
So, well, what do you want from me?
No, just this item for the work plan. Is it okay to leave it in the work plan?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, that's it. And Steve and Pat, disaster resilience Japan.
Yeah, that's kind of our main charge right now is to report on how things are done in Japan with respect to disaster preparedness, education, disaster response, et cetera. And to what extent can that be a model here? And that assignment stems from the fact that both Pat and I spent time in Japan last year. In my case, I was assigned to a university hazards unit over there for a few months. And we were reminded frequently of just how well they do things. And we think we can do this in the, the first half of this year. Pat's found some, not Japan specific, but some global stuff on flood hazards, as have I. And this may not sound very pertinent, but since our last meeting, I did a peer review of the Japan volcano warning system at the request of the Japanese. And there's actually, because they approach a whole family of hazards in kind of a consistent framework, there's actually some pertinent stuff to be learned there. For instance, kind of oddly, their volcano warning network is run by the meteorological agency, Japan Meteorological Agency. And, they do seismic and geodetic networks on all the active volcanoes. And the reason they inherited that is because they already had the capability to issue warnings. The Japanese wanted all the warnings to come from the same group that knew how to do warnings. And they ended up doing a lot of the core monitoring as well. Anyway, we're learning, and we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't have anything scheduled, but I'm hoping to have a speaker either for our March meeting or the April meeting, but I'm still, if the person I want is unable to do it, then I have a backup person to request. It may be a Zoom rather than in person. So stay tuned. I should know within a week, I think.
Oh, and I had a sort of query for you, Neon. I don't know if you remember, about a year ago at your request, Troy Doubtit and I prepared some notes on resilience, and you, at your request, they were intended for posting on the website, and which of course was never done because I think we still don't really know how to put things on a website or what. But should we resurrect those, or is that just water over the bridge at this point?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, you have a copy. The committee looked at it in session.
Okay.
Just a reminder that existed.
Thank you.
Now, there is a weekly letter that goes out and to everybody, and then it's put on the forum. And it includes the updates from the different committees, whatever little blurb you want, it includes those in it. So it's really just a question of sending it to Darcy.
Okay.
And then it'll be pushed, as well as it'll be pushed in the weekly letter.
Is it automatically pushed to a PD forum or?
Yes.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So you have to sign, and anyway, it's beyond me, but yes, you have to just put that on. Just take whatever it is you have and give it to them, and then they can use it. You can see how it works.
Mary, my impression is that the town pushes out a link to a PDF, and it does not also attach the contents of that, include the contents of that PDF within the body of the email.
Well, what I've seen from
Yeah.
conservation, the easy things like Firewise
Right.
and conservation, is that there's a blurb that goes out and then it has links. But it has the blurb that they produce, like a 6-sentence, whatever it is, and then it goes to the link.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of this is the weekly newsletter, right? And there's an email that has a picture of the town, or this building. And
A lot of communication going on right now. So
Right.
just give it to them and see
Right.
what they do with
Yeah.
it. But they're trying pretty hard to get
Yeah.
each of those communications out.
As
Ways, including the Darcy has a weekly blog that she'll include your links and your whatever's happening with geologic safety.
But prior to handing text to Darcy, does the committee have to review and approve the text as a group? Because that would really slow things down. How does that part happen?
I think that's up to you. Again, yes, if it's a correspondence from the Geologic Safety Committee, it has to be approved.
Yeah,
Right?
But that was-
If it's just a correspondence from from a town geologist, she can include that as a correspondence from the from a resident geologist. But if it's actually an official communication from the Geologic Safety Committee, it has to be approved.
yeah.
But she can say, well, Simon said.
Mary, that's great news. Thank you. That's really good news.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Okay, so that's resilience in Japan. And I added, I just had dropped off the list because there's never been budget for it. The safety element, we're going to have to add, I think we'll be asked to participate in redrafting the new safety element. I hope we will be. I'll talk to Rebecca firm. But once there is budget for this, thank you. Once there's budget for this, then the town council's budget. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, so I
then, they know that people have. We get to that part of the review, the pressure.
okay, we'll keep it on the list.
Great advice, Mary. Very much welcome. Your advice is very much welcomed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, all right, then I will use this list when I give our report to the town council. It'll be February 25th. Good. And I request photographs. So, Pat, you had one photographs? I need some photographs for a PowerPoint. I can't just give them bullet points. Pardon? I'm on the schedule, yeah. Pardon? Yeah, I'm on the schedule. I'm not going to give them six PowerPoint pages with bullet points only. I would love. Just give them that. Don't do a PowerPoint, huh? Okay, may I please have?
So what do you mean by photos? You mean
Okay,
like
at the risk,
or something?
Wait, let me finish. I'm requesting photographs from Steve and Pat from Japan. And Simon from the work that you've been doing from Hawthorne's, and I've got some photographs, and Bob has a drone photograph that's really nice.
I'll give you more. I will give you more photos.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so photographs, so I will I will email you to ask for photographs, but, this morning. Okay, so who was next? Someone wanted to try? No?
At the risk of, to get rid of the question mark on the number 6, I'm willing to put my name there. Save Simon the exposure. There's a question mark here.
Shall I just leave my name? That Pat was working on it before. That's why I put the question mark. I don't know whether you'd
Yeah, I
want to.
think I have enough on my plate. I'm going to be gone for a couple months in the middle of the year, so
You said yes or? I'm sorry.
I said I don't think I have time.
Okay. I'll just put my name down, and if someone else wants to join, that's fine.
Dan, you can put my name there.
Okay. If you want to do that. Okay,
Just as a aside, as we're wrapping up, so I recently read an article in the Irish Times about flooding in Ireland right now. They're getting hammered by this massive front that's sitting over eastern North America. And one thing that's pointed out in the article, and it's by the professor that developed their flood modeling, is that with climate change, you have to pay attention to how saturated the ground is already, which is the case right now in Ireland. They're really getting hammered with flooding right now.
Not a problem for us, though, is it?
No.
in our own way, we see that too. We see perhaps fewer rainstorms, but more intense. A lot more intensity. At least there has been the last few years. So,
Yeah, I guess the point is how climate change perturb, what we've considered steady state.
yeah, you're right, absolutely right. Okay, I want to add something. We have a Zoom participant, Stephanie Wiskovsky, if I got, Stephanie, if I have your pronunciation of your last name right. Stephanie, can you, let's see, unmute yourself? If
Yeah,
you're
I
here.
can, but it's a little like noisy. I'm literally outside.
Whoa, that's a bit loud. Here, okay. Okay, say something. Okay, Stephanie. Okay, so Stephanie is, Stephanie
Yeah.
said, wow,
I mean, like, I can talk, but it's a little noisy because I'm outside of the old school, like a room.
Yeah.
she should be in. Oh, poor Stephanie. Okay, hi Stephanie. Yeah, so Stephanie has submitted her application for the committee. She's finished her bachelor's in geology at San Jose State, and she's working on a research project right now, continuing her research. She's living, unfortunately, just outside the boundary of the town. So my proposal is that if Stephanie's interested in working with us, if you see anything that we're working on that is of interest to you, or you want to propose a project that's relevant, then we should be working with you. You should be working with us, and you don't have to be a formal member of the committee. So,
Just to be a member, and if there's a way to make it possible, I'd like to see it happen.
I will continue investigating, but I put it to the town manager later, and
Okay. Well, thank you.
So
Stephanie, which school district are you in?
yeah,
Yeah, right.
but she's just outside the sphere of influence. Yeah, she's across Los Trancos Creek, which puts her in Santa Clara County rather than San Mateo County. And I know, but we can work on this.
Can we make her an honorary citizen? If we go down?
I know. Anyway, I'm glad
Stephanie,
you came. I
could
wish-
you-
Wish you'd walked in the building.
Yeah.
But,
I hope you'll tell us, say a few words about your background and your current research. I hope you'll say a few words about your background and current research.
Okay, right here. Okay. Well, yeah, my professor, like a Dr. Maren, she went to a USGS conference like recently, and she told me about Dr. McCoy. Is that you? Yeah, McCroy. Yeah, I'm sorry. And she was like she's like working with like a Portola Valley and in all about the geologic safety and earthquakes. And she's the one who is in charge at school in San Jose State about like faulting areas, and they are working on the research. So that's why she say like, oh, you might be interested to like try to like help your community, and that's how I like contact you.
So she heard my presentation to the earthquakes.
Exactly, yeah.
Project meeting.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what the school is doing right now. It's kind of like working a little bit like with drone and LiDAR. They are like mapping some areas, and they are trying to process everything, get into the GIS program, and like show how like the movement rate is changing. And they are doing that with different areas. Right now, I was helping a student that is working in the Haas Valley in San Jose. But yeah, that was a little bit like that's why I was a little like with the interest in working with this project.
I'm sure all of you are way too busy for this, but what we've done is do internships. The town council has people who are doing internships with them. And what's nice about that is that you can say to her, first of all, it's a resume builder for her. She gets to say that she had an internship with the Geologic Safety Committee in Portola Valley. Geologic safety, but also it gives you somebody you can turn to and say, look up this problem, or bring me a summary of these issues or whatever. Although it's a work for everybody. You all teachers know.
Stephanie, did you say you had completed your bachelor's degree, but you're now doing a master's? You said what the master's degree?
No, I recently graduated in December, and right now I'm just trying to find a job, like trying to exploring a little bit more, seeing which area of the geology I want to do. And I really want to do a master, maybe in a year.
Sorry, you said you think you want to do what? Or you're just investigating?
I just want to learn a little bit more before going for a master. I want to have a little more practice so I'm planning to do a master probably in a year from now.
Have you looked at internships with geotechnical firms?
Yes, right now I'm working in an internship with the city of Milpitas. We're doing some GIS. It's pretty much like water utility and GIS, part of the engineering division. And right now I just got contact from a geotechnical company for probably a position, but it will be part-time position.
Excellent.
It's a AGS in San Francisco.
Okay, so,
Wisawati, Wisawati,
Uh-oh.
Wiswaty. Yeah. Yeah, it's 500 Los Trancos Road, Portola Valley.
Stephanie has a Portola Valley mailing address, but she's across, she's in Santa Clara.
Yeah, that's a little weird. It's like the
Yeah.
house is in the Santa Clara district. Part of the land of the house is in the Portola Valley, but because all the utilities are coming from the Santa Clara County, that's why the house is officially in the Santa Clara County with a San Mateo County address. So
So do you have a Portola Valley zip code?
94028, yes.
But Mary, how does the town's internship process work again?
Mhm.
So for example, the definition of
Rebecca Flynn did the designation of the Alpine Sea in a corridor, and she got some kind of a grant for that or acknowledgement from the state. That was done with a high school student who was interested in how we would do such a thing. And it made her job more interesting and deepened the end. It was a success. And I'm working with a high school student again with, on the Anza Trail, which comes through here. Something that she's interested in and I'm interested in, and so we talk about it and makes it seem more likely that it might happen or be of interest, success. As far as I know, there's nothing illegal or that has to be bureaucratized about it.
Okay.
It's
All right,
like an
that was my
activity.
question, yeah.
An activity,
But then they could put it on a Vita if they wanted, yeah.
because it's true.
Yeah.
I have to be fingerprinted before I can work with minors, high school students.
You do?
Mhm.
I probably do too.
Right. It's a
Right.
once in a lifetime,
Spoiler.
once in a lifetime thing though. So it's just once and then I'm good for my life. So
How about if you're just talking on the phone? No.
So Stephanie, thank you for coming. I want to tell you that you're the first person who's expressed an interest of even at an intern level. This is going to, at least speaking for myself, this is going to be a learning curve to try to figure out how to work with you. Mary talked about being an intern, but that's not what I heard when you came in the room. But I'm grateful that you're here. I don't know how it's going to work in the future. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean that I'm trying to say no. I'm trying to say yes. Yes to what? I don't know, but let's try to figure it out.
Okay, I think we should introduce ourselves. It's Bob Rucky, Vice Chair Nan Shostak, and Chair Simon.
Simon Klemperer, I think Betsy Madden will remember I probably taught her in the past.
Because she went to Stanford? Yep.
Pat McCrory.
And Steve Ingebrigtsen.
Nice
for
to meet
coming in.
you all.
And Gary Ernst was here earlier. He had to leave early.
Mhm.
Well, I hope we can find some common ground here, something you'd be interested in working on, that we we're also working on. I
Yeah,
think-
once we have a better understanding of your specific interests that you're exploring, then
Mhm.
we can come up with
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I would like to meet with you offline sometime. Park bench here at the town center or whatever works for you.
Okay.
Just to share with you what we're working on, find out what you want to work on. And let's see what can, let's figure out what's possible.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, good. And thank
Mhm.
you for coming. I'm sorry you were stranded outside. I had no idea.
Yeah, I have a doctor's appointment early. It took a little bit more longer and I got here like 10:08 and I don't want to disturb. So that's why I was outside
Yeah,
on Zoom. So
yeah, the closed door is pretty intimidating sometimes.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. I think we pretty much beat to death. Bob had some other things he was working on. You can-
Well, I'd like to just talk about one that may be of interest to some people in the committee. There was a question about, the town, we have the two geologic maps, the geologic map and the ground movement potential map. I took it upon myself to try to figure out how to georeference it. And it turned into a bit of a nightmare of a project. I'd like to talk more about that in more detail later, but I created one version that I turned it into a GeoTIFF format for both maps, but then I saw that there were, I ran into a lot of synchronization problems. Just for those who are familiar with the process of trying to synchronize one map to another, one of the maps has over 200 synchronization points. It's a massive amount of effort to try to make it happen, but I would like to at the very least, make this available to anybody who wants it.
I think that somebody who is learning GIS might find this an exciting opportunity to put her name on a product that would be part of the public record.
Yeah, okay.
So Bob, is it the issue different map projections that you're trying
Well,
to?
the official town, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but thank you for the question. Yes, the town map does not have an official projection. If you look at it, it doesn't tell you what the projection is. I tried to brute force it into a UTM zone 10, projection. That's the typical projection for maps of around here. And I ran into all kinds of problems, especially from Alpine Road up to Skyline, of trying to get everything synchronized. I synchronized things with buildings. I've tried to synchronize things with property lines. I concluded that the accuracy of what's in the town maps is a little problematic. You can synchronize on one set of data, but not two. Like you can synchronize on buildings or you can synchronize on property lines, but don't try to synchronize on both unless it's a strange blend, which I think is what it's actually going to end up being. But the number of problems I found was astonishing. One of the things that I will like to tell everybody is there's a quality control problem. One of the things was I worked on, I've got two versions of this I've worked on. One was based on homes and structures, because you can see structures in aerial photographs, and that made it a great way of trying to make sure everything was right. And then our town maps, they have topographic contours. So I synchronized the topographic contours. And then I found a problem that I did not anticipate. Both maps, even though one's a ground movement potential and the other one is geologic and rock units, they do show some landslides, both maps. When I synchronize the maps and I look at them with the same contours, the topography is the same, the landslides are in different places. That's a quality problem.
So Stephanie, have you seen the town's maps? The town has two maps that are used for land use. That is where you could build houses or where you can't build. And one is the geologic map and the other is the ground movement potential map that has things like landslides and has units of soil units that are unsuitable for building, things like that. The geologic map has basically the rock units and and the overlying layers. And this is the first time we've heard that they don't match, which is not good.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you can find the maps on the town's website under the Planning and Building Department. And then I think might be resources, and then it's or I don't know, resources and maps or something. It's about 3 menu levels down. But I'd recommend, if you're interested at all, just taking a look at those 2 maps, realizing that they don't exactly match.
Well, they match in lots of places, but it's just strange that there are places where they don't.
And that brings up the question of whether they match reality, which is the surveyor states, at property boundary.
That's for a whole long conversation. But I would like to make the maps to a certain point where I will finish them and make them available to anybody. And what we do with them, I don't know, but I did do the double check of, so I did all this work and then I got it converted into a GeoTIFF, and then I asked my mapping program to take the GeoTIFF and can you read it and does it work? And the answer was yes. So I was heartened to at least see that the process works. And so it should be available to anybody who has putting GIS layers.
It's a no-brainer that the town should want to adopt
Okay.
these maps into its own GIS. And if it can't, then that becomes a Cotton Shires issue.
Yeah, so to me, going forward,
So we have the town maps are currently PDFs. They are flat maps, which means that although they may have latitudes and longitudes, or they may have property boundaries on them and roads on them, they are not actively linked to a coordinate system. You cannot hover your cursor and know where you are in a Mercator projection or a WGS 84, NAD 83, whatever it is. A GIS is in its nature geographically referenced to a coordinate system. And so ArcGIS, the one the town uses WGS 84, I'm confident,
okay,
as its underlying premise. That's the most common global standard.
okay.
It's possible it uses NAD
I was using NAD 83.
NAD 83, the North American datum, as opposed to WGS, World Geodetic System. But the point is, those coordinates can be interrelated. And to be fully useful, any map these days should be georeferenced. Any map you download from the USGS, your phone will then locate a cursor on it telling you exactly where you are. And that's what we would like for these town maps. But we obviously have to resolve issues about property boundaries, etc., before they can become part of the public record owned by the town.
The evacuation map was so far the versions, they're not GIS, but they can easily be converted into it with the work that I've done. So that's, yeah, I didn't.
So this committee, Bob's work basically, has made public a map of potential geologic hazards in the way of major evacuation routes. This is in case of fire following earthquake. So fires frequently follow earthquakes. If we have a major earthquake, it's more than likely fire will break out. If it spreads through town and the fire district calls an evacuation, we'll have to get out. And this map shows the hazards, faults, landslides, areas of potential liquefaction along Portola Road, Alpine Road, Las Trancas Road, and for you, and the Restradero.
I could add that if the town's official geology map was the GIS base, then it would become trivial to have a layer that is the USGS CDMG faults and a separate layer that is the Cotton Shires faults that could be toggled on and off as a building or manager or planning manager needs for their individual purposes. And that becomes a way in which we extract a lot more value from these documents and a lot more flexibility. Stephanie, did I get that right?
Okay,
That's enough.
let's wrap this meeting up. I'd like to approve the minutes, Pat's beautiful minutes from January meeting on the back of the first page. Of course, everyone has read every word and approved, yes? I have. Anyone want anything reworded?
I move that we accept the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, I think we're supposed to have a roll call vote on that. That will do. Thank you. Minutes are approved. And we talked about the draft logo. I'm open to any other thoughts. This was just a first, just playing with Chat GPT for a few minutes, come up with this. But I think we need a logo that says, "We are the Geologic Safety Committee," and every time you see the logo, you know that's us. Need to be a little more. Pardon? Okay. And yeah, we discussed this.
Yes, it could simply have a schematic skyline and the fault with an earthquake trace. Sorry, the ground with an earthquake trace and a fault beneath it.
Just, it's simple, it's very simple.
And that may show up better as a small memorable logo.
Especially in black and
Yeah.
white.
And you could have, I don't know, these things are always better, simpler, I guess, but you could also have a big landslide scarring those green hills in the background triggered by the
Oh,
earthquake.
I did that.
Just to show that it's we're talking about multi-hazard.
I did that, and it put this huge landslide on one of the hills in front. And it was really ugly, but, yeah, it'll put in a landslide for you if you want it. So we can play with it, see what we want. Okay, the last thing was the Northern California Earthquake Hazard Workshop. Stephanie, do you know about that? Okay, look on the, new business item C. It's tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. And if you go to that link, you can register for it and you can get so that you can sign in. They'll recognize you as a participant if you want to sign in and watch some of the sessions. You can also get the agenda, and there's some really, really interesting sessions and talks on things that I think you'll probably be interested in.
So is it hybrid? Is it Zoom? Is it Teams?
It's Zoom only.
Or is it Teams?
Yeah.
USGS usually uses Teams.
So Steve, you moderated a session last year.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know whether it's Zoom or Teams.
I think it's only Zoom.
I did.
I think. Yeah. So if you have, today, register so that you can, if you find a session that you think you'd like to listen to, then.
And usually, I didn't look at the agenda this year, but usually they have a session that talks sort of about infrastructure that has people from PG&E and water utilities and so on. And that's where, to me, it gets most relevant to what people are thinking about the town level.
Absolutely. There are some more practical applied sessions, and then there are some very theoretical talks too, that sometimes are difficult to understand, especially if there's any accent at all. But Mary, are you? Oh. Okay, thank you very much for coming. Okay, so, I recommend that you take a look at the agenda for the meeting next
Will.
few days, because I think there are some things that you're going.
Thank you. I'll do that. Thank you very much.
All right, is there anything else anyone would like to discuss? No?
We make a motion to adjourn?
Good. Okay, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed? We're adjourned.